Welcome to Season 2 of the Parkinson's podcast Unfiltered, with hosts Heather Kennedy and Kat Hill, brought to you by the Davis-Phinney Foundation. Heather is originally from New York and was diagnosed with young-onset Parkinson's in 2011 when she was 40. Kat is originally from a small town in California and was diagnosed in 2015 when she was 48. In this season, Heather and Kat will be joined by Chris Krueger, a Davis-Phinney Foundation staff member who was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2020 when he was 37. In each episode this season, Heather and Kat will dive deep into the raw emotion and realities of living with Parkinson's as they share stories and discuss questions they've received from people in the Parkinson's community. In their final episode, Heather, Kat, and Chris take on audience questions, reflect on what they're grateful for, and bid farewell to the Parkinson's podcast Unfiltered.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to see your faces.
Hi, Kat. Hi, Chris. I think we have some questions to go to.
We do have a couple questions. So our first question that we wanted to get to was from Philip, who asked, how do you deal with people who insist on helping you by physical means? For example, when you're crossing the road and they take you by the hand or take you by the elbow and start to help you across the street, or maybe try to help you when you're frozen, something of that nature. But the question was about grabbing your elbow when you start to walk across the street.
Oh, wow.
That's a biggie. Biggie.
Yeah, it is certainly for me.
Yeah.
The body's always calculating movement. It's going to choose the easiest, the parts of the movement that cost the least energy. Doesn't work with Parkinson's. You're always recalibrating and integrating, sort of modulating how you're stepping. You're always trying to take that next breath and lift the leg enough. Signals aren't being received, so it's impossible. You'd be pulling the upper part of the body, and your feet are still stuck. Someone pulls on your arm.
Yeah, so it totally dysregulates what you're trying to do if somebody grabs you, especially like in a crosswalk or something, when you're pushed to get across already feeling pressure with that. I bet that's terrifying.
It is.
It's interesting. As soon as I heard that question, I had a blip thinking about when my mom was struggling, and the fussy caregiver Kat always was, quick to jump in. And she didn't have Parkinson's, but she was struggling with mobility related to cancer and spinal issues. And I remember her kind of snapping at me, which didn't happen very often. And she said, let's make an agreement. If I need help, I'll ask. Don't just jump in. And now my own walking with this Parkinson's experience, literally and figuratively, I feel that way myself. And Ken and I kind of have that agreement. Now, it's tough because, people in the public you don't have agreements with, and people are jumping in to do things and they think they're being helpful, when in reality, it's dangerous, really.
Part of the problem, I was saying that part of the problem is that we train at home or in our clubs. Like, we'll train for these things. We'll take the Parkinson's boot camp class, or the Big and Loud, or whatever it is, the Power for Parkinson's and all that jazz. And they're great classes, but we're in a controlled environment. Then you get into the airport, a new environment with a subtly narrowing passageway, and you get stuck and you're stopped, and everybody runs into the back of you. And then as they push, you start to worry about walking forward, and you forget to do the move where you go back to go forward, or you do the little tricks that you have because you forget your tricks,
It's just so stimulating. You're in a totally different environment. Sure.
Yeah, it's really terrifying. When someone's coming up on your heels, you can hear them coming like a herd. Am I going to get stampeded or stampeded?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to turn either, right?
And you can't. Have you tried to turn around a small space?
Especially in the middle of the street.
Right.
In a crosswalk.
Right.
This is like the worst, right?
I know.
Timed thing. Like the consequence is you get run over by a car.
Right. Is he asking like what to say to people?
Yeah, I think that is sort of the question as I read it. It was about, what do you do?
What do you do?
How do you handle that? How do you deal with is how Philip put it. How do you deal with folks who insist on helping?
Yeah.
I'll say, do you want to lose a finger? Keep touching me.
What do you do, Heather? Yeah, no, other than
Fart,
that.
you fart. No, you just say, please do not touch me. I'm trying to balance, trying to stabilize. They won't listen. None of these things are happening in a quiet space. There's cars beeping. There's people going, hey, lady, get out of the way. Who do you think you are?
And even if it were a quiet space, it's not a quiet space for the interaction between the two people or in the person who's trying to help. It's not quiet in their head.
And it's also coming from behind. And so even saying things, you're not wanting to turn to direct your conversation at them anyway. Yeah, I think for me, I would probably react with hands up a little bit. And please, I'm trying to do this alone, or thank you, but no thank you for helping. Or I don't know. I'm not sure.
Hold up, wait a
Hold
minute.
up, stop. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I would break out in song in the middle of a street, but you never know.
So
It's a
I think
beat.
what we're coming to is that when somebody interacts with us in this way, we turn around and we sing them a song that they're probably not going to necessarily have at the top of their mind in that moment.
Exactly. And it takes them aback, and then it becomes a whole show, and then it gets put on YouTube, and then,
Yeah, the whole
the end.
intersection breaks into synchronized dance.
Can you imagine? That'd be so much fun.
I guess what really jumps out to me about this question is that my biggest concern isn't what would I do if somebody interacted with me in this way. My biggest concern is what would I not do the next day if this happened? I might think
Mm,
I ain't going
yeah.
out again. Like that would be the biggest risk for me. I mean, sure, if I fall because of this, it would be bad. I don't want that. That could be a really terrible outcome. But barring that, the worst thing would be that I think it would make me not want to go out and try to walk anymore in public.
Or have pause. Do I even want to cross the street, right? Or, do I take a circuitous route? I can see that, Chris. I could see that being an outcome, and isolation isn't good for any of us.
What that led me to think is, what tools can I add to the toolbox to make that not happen to myself? And I guess one thing that jumps to my mind, and I don't know that this is a good solution for everybody, but I do know that, first of all, trekking poles can help with your own stability, so it's less risky maybe. And there are specifically, like the activator poles are a good option that I think works well for some people.
A cane, even if you're going out walking, even if you don't need it, it cues other people that you've got their special considerations, and they may give you a wider berth, for lack
Especially if
of
you
a.
beat them. If you beat them, they'll give you an extra wide berth.
Indeed. Yeah.
Well,
I
it does
love it.
cue people that there's
But
a
yeah,
problem.
it does. It does indeed. Yeah. I hope we answered that is it Philip?
Philip,
Philip. Yeah. I appreciate you writing in. It's a good something to ponder for us.
you should have some techniques in your pocket, but they don't always work.
You have to come up with something, because if you don't have anything, then I mean, I can only imagine how hard it would be if something like this happened and you really were put in a bad position in the middle of a crosswalk, for example, especially. I guess I want to add one little thought here, and then I think we'll move on to the next question if you guys are up for it. I've been working on this project, which I don't think I've shared with either one of you, with the physical therapy group where I am in Bend, Oregon. And we're working on a walking soccer for Parkinson's programs. We have a bunch of people with Parkinson's. We just work on some basic soccer drills and some skills, which is putting people with Parkinson's in this position to sort of have a dynamic new experience, new for them often. Maybe there are some people who played soccer before. But anyway, the point of me mentioning this is just that what this is doing is getting people used to being in a situation where their balance is maybe a little challenged. They're paying attention to stimuli that's new. And so I guess I just want to plug that there's a lot of opportunities to do things like that in structured ways or unstructured ways. If you want to just try to work with a physical therapist, or even an occupational therapist could potentially help with some of this.
Yes.
Just going to say both of those can be great tools if folks are looking for those things. Yeah, and sometimes even they can even sometimes prescribe things like walking sticks or a cane, and it can be covered on your insurance too.
One more thought, not to drag this out too much, but I really love this question.
Yeah.
I did a lot of exercises before Parkinson's that were useless. So I make sure that the exercises are like the occupational therapist would recommend. What movements are you going to use today? Like boxing wasn't terribly helpful. This is pre-Parkinson's boxing. I'm not talking about rock steady.
Well, it might be helpful now if this person grabs your elbow.
I was just going to say, if the cane doesn't work, then you resort to your boxing moves.
And that's actually relevant to the next question we had, which is it was not going to sound like it when I get to the question, but I'll read this question we got from Kirsty. Kirsty describes walking out of the movement disorder specialist's office and newly diagnosed and stating confidently, I'm going to fight this thing. And soon after, Kirsty writes, I had a multifaceted plan where I was going to bring my young onset Parkinson's completely under my control within a year. Well, Kirsty writes, I'm quoting Kirsty this whole way here. Parkinson's had other plans. Now I feel a decade into this, I'm beginning to teeter a bit more, both figuratively and literally. My perspective, my reality has changed at the dawn of 2026 compared to the dawn of 2016, when I was so relieved to have a name for what was going on in my body, and it turned out really what was going on in my brain. I'm still optimistic and hopeful and grateful and definitely humble, as well as thankful and awed. Thank you, Parkinson's, for everything that you've given me that I could never have imagined I would become when this journey began. My question is, what's one thing that you're grateful for from or about PD now?
Oh, wow.
That was beautifully written. Wow. I guess first off, the first thing that I can think about is I'm grateful for all of you. And that may just sound corny as all get out, but
Stop it some more.
I I tell people a lot I'm really not grateful to have Parkinson's. I haven't reached that mode, but I am really grateful for what Parkinson's has brought me. And that's really the people that we get to talk to. And I've had an opportunity to write and publish a book. I'm not sure I ever would have done that without Parkinson's. And I also want to just touch on too, and then Heather, I promise I'll let you get a word in here, but
Oh.
I I also can really relate to the whole fighting thing. I felt that really at the beginning. And for me, fighting, I think we've touched on this before, it feels mean and aggressive. And I don't like to be in a fight mode. So acceptance was a huge part of what brought me more peace and more harmony within myself. So, yeah, what do you think, Heather?
I haven't mastered this, but it certainly does drive me toward patience, tolerance, and the ability to sit in the pain. Rather than seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, I'm realizing pain's going to be a big part of my everyday now. So unlike my counterparts, my peers that aren't working with Parkinson's, who I almost feel sorry for because when they experience a little bit of pain, they're really intolerant. They're really upset. And they're just like, the world is ending. Like, I have the flu. Oh my God, they'll talk about the flu for 10 months. And I'm like, dude, you'd be in the ER every day. Like, I feel like I'm dying 9 times a day, suffocating and, extreme cramping. And, everyone's got something though. But I will say that it lessens my need to complain about the pain because it's always there.
My initial reaction to this question was that I think what I'm grateful for, aside from the people, which I met so many delightful people and so many people that I really love and who I've learned a lot from. But I think that's really where it comes to for me is it's really about the learning I've had the opportunity to undertake. The things I've gotten to, I've become so much more broadly educated because of this experience of having Parkinson's, and I feel like I've grown a lot because of that. And one thing that I haven't done enough of, I think, is what you just talked about, Heather, is really coming to sort of, I don't know, it's not like a meditative approach, but that sort of like accepting and learning to work with the things that are before you, including pain. And I think that's probably the most important thing I could do right now is start to become better at that. So I'm wondering what that means to you. I mean, do you find that this is about a sort of, what does that mean to you when you talk about becoming more comfortable with the pain and or maybe you didn't put it that way, but how does this affect your general life? That sort of comfort. What does that do to you?
I guess I'm able to breathe into the discomfort a little better and have a little more compassion for myself. Like this, it's like I'm not quite as reactive to pain. Like pain it's not going to kill me. I know that it's finite. It will stop. When I'm in a dystonic fit, I know that the fit's not going to last the whole day. It usually doesn't. So it gives you sort of these points. You realize the intensity of the pain is going to make you respond differently. And then you start thinking, oh, all those people that I had trouble with in my life, maybe they're just in pain. Is it possible that it's not about me when they hurt me? They're hurting and they hurt others because they're in pain. They don't know how to deal with pain.
Physical or emotional. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, Heather. That's deep. And I think that deep level of acceptance, and it circles back a little bit, like physically not fighting the pain and not leaning in a little bit, breathing into it, leaning in and not tensing up to fight it. There's lots of evidence and lots of literature written about that, how that can make pain worse when we fight it. And so, but it's definitely a learned skill, if you will.
Or it's like go or be dragged. It's like I didn't learn this stuff because I was trying to be spiritual. I learned stuff because I was dragged into it.
Right. Yeah. You weren't seeking, enlightenment with your Parkinson's diagnosis.
I got dragged.
But what I'm noticing is actually from both of you, one of the things I've started to learn is that, I think our audience could maybe even attest to this. You used to speak rather calmly, and I am going a million miles a minute. And I think there's something in that where I haven't quite learned this lesson yet, that it's okay to sit in that in something that's a little uncomfortable and breathe into it in a way that when my brain's going, it's going. And I'm not necessarily living in the way that you're describing. And so I'm recognizing, and maybe I hope this will be something that I can pick up from now going forward, is that I have to get better at that. And there's got to be a practice that I can undertake to do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not all able to take the time to go home and sit there and practice at Pema Chodron's feet in Grandpa Abbey in New Zealand or something, We can go to the top of the mountain, hang out with the Dalai Lama and learn his sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
But like to be relaxed, at peace, happy, or at least grounded in our bodies, it takes a while.
Takes a practice.
Yeah, really, really is hard.
Peace and calm. And by no means let us let you on. We are not all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Peaceful.
Rarely. I know of it. I didn't say I was in it. I didn't say I was doing this thing. My kids would laugh. My daughter would be like, my mom just yelled at me yesterday and she just cried today. But to be a little gentler. I'm slowed down, so I have to be gentler. I have to be slower. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Self-compassion. So Chris, the first thing I would say is that, talking about it and wanting to learn more about it is a huge thing. And the awareness is huge. The fact that you even notice the different cadence of conversation. It's funny because that's not something I necessarily would say, oh yeah, Chris, you do talk faster or whatever, whatever you just said. It's not something I notice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's worth going into too much deeper into that idea, but just for this conversation maybe. But, to me, I just think it's a sign to me of a sort of, it's not anxiety. It's just that there's something going on that's it's not well managed in my sort of thought process.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. These are good questions. I love them.
All the things I couldn't do while I was well because I was too much in my ego, too much in my wellness, too much in my swagger. Like, look, I can dance all night. Now I can't dance all night. I'm frozen stiff for those hours. When you're sitting still for a long time by yourself, alone in a room, you've got a lot of time to think. But I'd be a little gentler.
That's where it's starting for me, where this idea is coming up and what I know I have to learn still. And I don't want to lose track of this question. And I do really believe this is what I personally am grateful for, is this greater opportunity to learn and increased opportunities to learn, because I'm, more and more I'm not sleeping very well at all. And so I'm often up multiple hours of the night. And, those are really, really, really hard moments for me. And I know I cannot fight those. If I fight them, it's going to be worse. I'm going to be up a lot longer and I have to find some other way.
This is hard stuff, which,
hard stuff.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even us getting together has gotten harder, hasn't it, Heather?
We're like herding cats.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't even know what
Literally,
day it is. Chris is working all the time. I don't know what day it is. You have a million friends.
Oh, you're sweet.
Right?
Yeah, and less organizational skills than I used to. And it makes me sad to talk about this, but I think we've our listeners know we haven't been coming to them as regularly, and that's partly for all of those challenges that we just shared. And by no means, exclamation point, do I want to stop working with you all. But I think we're going to slow down our frequency of getting together for those reasons.
What we're pointing to in right now, I think, is that we're going to have to sort of pull the plug on any concept of a series of us getting together in a sort of concentrated way, because it's so challenging to do this in a way that's like it's just not regular
Consistent.
enough, right? We just haven't been able to pull it off. I'm sad about this, but I think it's just I don't see another way around it at the current point. When trying to get one person with Parkinson's ready to do something is hard enough. When we try to get all three of us together, it can be really difficult.
He pinches me. Oh, hi. No, you can't. I'm too far away.
Even just the Herculean effort to get medicated and on enough to show up and try to record. Anybody out there with Parkinson's gets how much they have to do to get ready. So you can appreciate it.
That's part of why, for example, if people who might be watching our Living with Parkinson's meetup, that's why people aren't always there, because there's just other things going on. And so when it's just a couple of us doing this, it doesn't seem sustainable at the current time in the current circumstances for Parkinson's. Maybe that'll change. And in any case, I think, I guess in a certain way, this is us saying, goodbye without saying goodbye.
Goodbye for now, until we meet again.
Yeah, we have a few projects to attend to. There's also coming up soon the World Parkinson's Congress and a couple of events. Davis Phinney's got a lot of events coming up this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's part of the other circumstances for sure. There's a lot else going on, and so also Heather, you've got some more changes in your living situation coming up, right? So that's another thing.
Wait till you see my accessible bathroom.
It's gorgeous.
Bidet.
I can count. The bidet.
Touch faucet. You just touch it, it goes on.
Even with your nose. And she showed me her nose can turn on the faucet.
It's that big. Your cute little nose would never turn the faucet.
Well, she would just get a slower rate of flow.
Right.
And Heather, you don't know this yet, but we're going to be writing and publishing another book.
I cannot wait to be the first person interviewed. No, I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
So, So projects, we continue our friendships, and don't be surprised if you hear from us again, folks. That's our promise and our warning, maybe.
Yes, I'm going to show up on some podcasts.
Also, if you want to reach out to us, you can still get, you can find there are various ways to do this, but if you would like to reach out to any of the three of us, feel free to, a simple way to do that would be to email content, CONTENT at dpf.org. And, the foundation staff or somebody can get if you want to message Kat or Heather, you can get there that way. We can even maybe put there are other ways to do that. Look in the description of this episode. You can find other ways too.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening, though.
Thank you.
It's been a real gift. I'll be back at you like a bad cold.
Guys, let's go to Vegas. Let's go.
Heather, you weren't supposed to say where we were going.
Oh, right. See you later, alligators.
Te amo.
Mwah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Parkinson's Podcast Unfiltered. This content includes information, insights, and opinions from our Parkinson's community. The views expressed are those of individual participants and do not constitute medical advice. This content is not intended to substitute for the guidance, advice, or recommendations of your personal healthcare providers.